That is my working week done. I've got 3 days of annual leave now coming up. So without further ado, let's go get some great images. I must be mad. 5 o'clock in the morning on annual leave. I should be still laying in bed. But I do love the early mornings as a photographer. It's where you get the best light. But ironically, it's not light I'm after this morning. I'm not going to be getting a sunrise because finally we're going out to do some long exposures. This type of photography is subjective with some photographers. Some don't like it because, of course, they prefer taking images where you can imagine it with your eye, you can see the image and imagine it being taken. Of course, a long exposure, you can't do that. Your naked eye can't see that milky smooth water. For me personally, I love them. There's a chance to get artsy, there's a chance to get creative, break from the normal scenery. It's the beauty of long exposures at the coast. You've got so much subject matter. You've got the water, you can go for minimalistic, you can go for a bit more detailed using the pebbles on the beach. The world's your oyster, just like anywhere. The one mistake I see all the time, the one mistake I made when starting out with long exposures, everyone thinks that you need to get that milky smooth water. So crank up the shutter speed as best as possible, go for a 30-second timer. It looks nice, I try and do it, okay, I do it occasionally still, but you don't need to be doing that. When you've got motion with the surf, find a 2-second timer, go with a 4-second timer, and just leave that little bit of motion. Gives it a little bit more detail, a little bit more to the shot. This first shot we're going for today, I'm going ISO 100. We do have light now, the sun is up, but it's not light enough yet to start needing ND filters. We don't need to manipulate the shutter speed just yet. I'm at f13, which is giving me roughly a 2-second timer. I'm aiming to focus just nicely. You probably can't see it, but I'm just shooting halfway into the scene. 2-second timer, of course, so we don't want any camera shake. And there's our first shot of the day captured. Of course, ND filters help with long exposures. So what happens if we don't have one to hand? Well, it's just a case of playing with the settings, playing with that exposure triangle until we get the scene that we're after. At the moment, I'm at ISO 200, f8 and 1/6 of a second. Let's take the shot and just see how that comes out. Check on the back of the camera. Not too bad. The sky's a little bit, we're not getting many highlights out of the sky. We've got a bit too much motion in the water. So let's drop that ISO down to 100. Take the shot again. Okay, it's darker, but like I say, we've still got that motion in the water. I don't know why I just left the shutter speed alone. Let's change the shutter speed, and that takes us down to about 1/5, and that takes us down, sorry, to half a second. Getting all my numbers mixed up and wrong today. Take the shot. Terrible deal, terrible. Let's review it, and that is far too bright, completely overexposed. So now what we need to do, we need to, of course, bump up the aperture. We can't push the ISO any lower. Slowing the shutter speed even more without a ND filter, it's just going to look white, it's going to look terrible, it's going to be awful. So let's push that aperture up to f13, take the shot again. We're still at half a second. That's better. The sky's a lot darker, a lot better. Let's see if we can just slow the water down a little bit more. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go to f16 now. Go to 1 second, or maybe just under 1 second, an 1/8 of a second. I can't decide. Let's go 1/8 of a second. There we go. Perfect. And as you can see, from an 1/8 of a second with this much light, we're already getting that milky smooth water. You don't need to be going to a 30-second timer straight away, because with the right conditions, even a second, 2 seconds, you go and get that lovely smooth water. So the sun's come up and we're getting a little bit more light now. I've had to ramp the shutter speed right up. We're at 1/30th of a second. You can't shoot long exposures at 1/30th of a second. Well, not here anyway. So now we get the ND filter out. Most landscape photographers like to shoot with an ND8, ND10 filter. It just means that you get to really manipulate the shutter speed, you get to slow it down a lovely amount. So let's get this screwed on the front of the lens. Not all ND filters screw on, some kind of slot in with plates, some are magnetic. This is a screw on and a magnetic. It's just what I prefer using. It's all about preference. And this is an 8-stop filter. Now, if we really wanted to shoot long exposures going over 30 seconds, I'd need to get photo peels up. Would need to make some calculations. But here, in these settings, we shouldn't need to. So now already we're having to slow the shutter speed right down. Get a nice exposure. We're at 2.5 seconds. If we ramp up the aperture anymore, go f13, we're going to have to slow the shutter speed even more. If we ramp up the ISO, go 200, 400, we'll bring the shutter back down. Again, it's all about trial and error, but ND filters, they really do help. They really are worth it if you want to get into long exposures, because they're just so fun. It really does help manipulate a scene a little bit. But we're shooting at 2.5 seconds for the moment. We're getting some lovely surf as the tide comes in and goes back out around these rocks, so we should get some lovely patterns. Let's set off the shutter speed and see what we get. So last location for this video, this spot here was where I did one of my very first long exposures, one of my first sunset shots. As you can see from the image, came out a little bit too overexposed. Hopefully I've learned since that day. Now, nice easy composition, just leading you along the beach to the towers. However, there is one issue. I've been an idiot. I've only brought out the one battery today, and that battery is almost dead. So I was driving along, trying to warm it up as best as I could to ensure I've got life for one last shot. So I'm not going to mess around now. Go and get on, take that final shot, and hopefully it'll appear on your screen. No! Just kidding. Here it is now.